What's up, Ramley? You are now in the kitchen with Chef Nixon for all your fixings for the latest and greatest of VCU men's basketball. So, VCU hosted the Bellarmine Knights last night. How'd it go? Let's get into it. All right, so there's nothing better than the start of a new season as a VCU Ram fan. New players, new schemes, returning players, player growth and development, all that we get to see, all the work that was done in the off season, all the new additions and how they gel. You kind of get a glimpse of that out of the first night. And I think last night we got a really good shot at a really good clear shot at what we need to see for this year's team. But let's get into who they were playing. The Bellarmine Knights. Bellarmine Knights are a team that is newly converted to Division One basketball. This is the first year they'll be eligible to play in the Big Dance. They're in the Atlantic Sun. They're coached by Coach Davenport, who was previously a coach here a while ago, a coach here at VCU with Tubby Smith, and he actually coached Lionel Bacon, who is a VCU great, who does a lot of good work for the Boys and Girls Club. Shout out to Lionel and the Three Pieces of Bacon, his kids. So Bellarmine, they come in with a very unique style of play. I remember watching them when they first transferred or converted to D1, and they had a special about Bellarmine on ESPN and their unique style of play. Now, what makes their style of play so unique is the fact that their offense is a great mixture of fast and slow pace. In the half court, they like to move the ball, limited dribbling of the ball, just move the ball, cut, set screens, flex cuts, and all that stuff, all that type of stuff, until they get an open shot. But in transition, they do a really good job of trying to push the pace and get easy buckets. But they're very disciplined and they're very well coached. Bellarmine, prior to last season, had 20 win seasons. However, due to injuries and losing players to the portal, last year they got out the gate and really struggled. They only had a total of 8 wins last season. This year they did a pretty decent job of going out and recruiting, player development for the guys that stayed, and also returning a star player who's projected to be All Atlantic Sun Conference first team, Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is a 6'3" guard who can score it in a variety of ways. He likes to straight line drive, but he can really shoot the ball as well from deep. So VCU will have to be mindful of him, but they also have a lot of experience over there in Bellarmine that they're going to try to exploit, and hopefully they can control the pace of the game, and I believe that would be their best chance of winning the game. Now, for VCU has the luxury of the transfer portal to actually get players they need and also retain players they need. So, for one, you got Max Shoga, who flirted with going to Villanova. However, it didn't work out. We ended up being able to sign him. Zeb Jackson and Joe Bamsil decided to stay from the get-go. We had Wheeler, we had Jay Nail, both depart. Fat stayed. But we ended up bringing in 2 freshman guards, Terrence Hill and Brandon Jennings, and a fifth-year senior guard, Phil Russell from UTEP, who is a hell of a player. And I think after watching this first game, he's going to be a VCU fan favorite just because of the energy he brings to the table, something that was probably missing most of last year. Excuse me. Now, speaking of returning players, VCU would be without their returning combo guard, Zeb Jackson, who has injured his hand, has a hand injury, and will have him sidelined for the foreseeable future. I think that he might be able to come back before the Charleston Classic. However, I don't think he'll be. I don't think his hand will be completely healed. It'll be the surgery will be healed, but as far as being out there trusting it to go out and perform in a high level basketball game, I think he may want a few more days of comfort. So maybe early December he'll return. Um, but we do wish him a speedy recovery. And let's get into some of these new additions. So I mentioned Phil Russell. I feel like people are going to really love his style of play. He's a small combo guard who can really score. He can get up under guys defensively. But the biggest thing he brings is his dog mentality that is very infectious to all the guys around him. And you're going to see you seen a little bit of it last night, but you're going to see that throughout the season. Um, Now he's going to be. I think he's going to flirt with getting texts all season. But I think if you want to be successful, you're going to have a guy like that pushes the limit a little bit. Um, then we have Jack Clark. He is a 6-year senior, transfer from Clemson, 6'10", very versatile player who can shoot three, shoots roughly slightly under 40% last year. But he can guard 1 through 5. He's a very good rebounder and an excellent defender. His experience is going to be crucial for VCU, especially with a slim front court. Losing Toby Lawal, losing Wheeler, only getting him back, and Luke, who's a freshman, who I don't believe he'll see a lot of playing time early on. Maybe towards the end of the season, as practice goes on, he can catch up with the speed of the game. However, I'll just hold off on that. So VCU's front court is kind of slim right now, with just Furman and Jack Clark, and of course you might see some Michael Bell playing the four as well. But that's something to keep your eye on. From there, let's talk about the two freshman guards. Brandon Jennings, he's a local combo guard, really a point guard from right here in Richmond, St. Christopher. Um, I seen a lot of film on Brandon Jennings, but I also seen him practice. He's a very versatile player, and if you follow my channel in the kitchen 50 on Instagram, excuse me, you'll see I made a couple of videos mentioning how versatile he is and what I think he brings to the table. Now, beside him is Terrence Hill Jr. Terrence Hill Jr. is a 6'1" guard all the way from Oregon. And this kid is just wired to score. I think that he's going to have moments of brilliance throughout the season when he gets the time to go in there and play. Especially after he has this first game under his belt, I think he's going to be able to do big things. And if VCU, with the transfer portal, you never know. But if VCU is able to retain him and Brandon Jennings as they go throughout their college career, we're going to have an excellent backcourt for the years to come. Now, I'm aware that a lot of people don't know who Bellarmine is, what they do, how they play, this and the third. But Bellarmine is a very well coached team, and they aren't going to back down for VCU. This is their first time being eligible for a dance, so they're hungry out the gate for this. This would be I foresaw this being a good test for VCU. I didn't think that this would be your typical first game where you just pick a random D2 team and just blow them out. I think this would be a good test for VCU because of the uniqueness of how they play, because of the experience they have, because of how well coached they are. I think this would be a great experience to get your toes wet as you start off a new season. Now, before the game, I wrote up some keys to the game, which I thought would be important. And after this, I can tell you how I feel like both teams did in that aspect. So for VCU, they would have to be disruptive on the defensive end. Try to get Bellarmine out of their routine style of play. You want to make them play differently than how they're used to. Get them uncomfortable. Make them go one-on-one in certain situations. Make them break the offense more than they would like. Also, transition defense. I mentioned before how Bellarmine does a really good job of pushing the pace when they have the opportunity just to probe and see if they have opportunity to score early in the shot clock. If not, they'll pull it out and make you guard for 30 seconds. So VCU's transition defense will be very important. Now for Bellarmine, They have to handle VCU's pressure. VCU is getting back to that havoc style of play where they're going to be guarding you 94 feet. Sometimes they'll come for the trap, sometimes they won't. But they are going to be in your face for a full 40 minutes. How would Bellarmine handle that? And even when they get to the half court, VCU is going to try to have a lot of ball pressure to negate their pass and cut style of play. Now, Bellarmine also has to do a really good job of containing VCU's guards. Granted, VCU is down a senior guard in Zeb Jackson. However, Max Shoga projected to be the first team All A10, and Joe Bamisile, who was a second team All A10 last year, second or third team last season, and he's just been working out and getting more comfortable within the system. And I think he's going to be guns a-blazing as this season starts. But then also Phil Russell, he's a very experienced guard and can score in a variety of ways, and he's a dog. So I imagine Bellarmine's going to have their hands full trying to contain all of that firepower. So let's get a little quick summary of the game. I thought it was very competitive from the jump. Like I said, Bellarmine didn't come to lay down. VCU still has to learn themselves. So it's going to be a back and forth game. I thought both teams showed they're going to be they're going to need to be respected in their respective conferences as the season goes. Honestly, I thought Bellarmine did a really good job of just running their offense. I think VCU. I don't believe VCU was disruptive enough in the half court, especially in the first half of this game. Bellarmine did a really good job of getting the ball to swing from side to side, running the offense, getting the opportunities they would like, which seemed to be a post up on the right hand side. And they did a really good job of being patient out of the post. VCU wasn't coming with a trap, so it was technically a one-on-one situation. And they did a really good job of just being physical, playing off 2 feet, selling a lot of pivots and up and unders, which led to them getting a lot of points. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch because they kept getting the same opportunities, and they kept capitalizing on it as well, which led to an issue that concerns me for later on in the road for VCU. However, we'll get to that later. But on the other end for VCU, I thought that defensively they did a really good job of communicating. Because it's a lot of action to guard, which requires a lot of energy. I can speak for that. Those systems are different. They're quite similar in the sense that when I was playing, William and Mary had a really good offense. A lot of backdoors, come togethers, handoffs, switches. It was a lot of screening, a lot of slips, a lot of fake screens. There's a lot of action to guard, which makes you even exert more energy than usual on the defensive end when you're guarding so much action. So I thought VCU, for the most part, did a really good job of just taking care of the ball. Not taking care of the ball, but communicating their way through things, figuring out how they wanted to address and adjust to the play of Bellarmine. And I thought they did a pretty good job, especially for the first game out. Now, on the offensive end, I will say this. This team has some of the most firepower I've seen from a multitude of players in a long time, I guess you could say. As far as like just being like players that can score on all three levels: Max, Zeb, Joe, Phil, all of which can give you 20 any night. But with that being said, what makes this team so dangerous is their unselfishness and willingness to make the extra pass. I know that's probably preached in the system of Coach Odom. However, but for guys to go out there and execute that in the fashion that we did last night was a beautiful thing to see. We had a multitude of plays where we had good shots and we passed them up for great shots, which led to, us being able to knock down 15 threes last night. We were 15 of 29 from downtown. And we also had 20 or 18 assists on the night. Let me check that out. Make sure I'm not telling any stories. We had 20 assists on 29 makes. Um, so if that doesn't show the chemistry that these guys have built over the summertime and how well connected they are, I don't know what else I have to show you. There was nobody really out there hunting for their own shots. Of course, you're going to have some heat checks from here and there, but for the most part, the ball was moving. The ball was hot, and VCU was able to get a ton of shots that they liked. Max Sugar was getting a lot of. I remember last year sometimes he had to work a little bit for his threes, but with this team now, the ball's moving so well that a lot of those threes were just easy step into threes for a 40+% 3-point shooter to just knock down. Now, VCU did have a couple issues, and you want to give Bellarmine some credit. Like I said, they're not a pushover team at all. But there are a couple things that I felt as if VCU needed to work on, and one would be transition defense. A couple of times we got caught celebrating our success, whether that be a layup or a hit three, or we weren't doing a good job matching up and getting turned around to see the ball. And Bellarmine did a really good job, make or miss, really pushing the pace to see if they can get something early. And a lot of the times, especially on misses, they were able to push the pace, get all the way downhill, put pressure on the rim, which would lead to a foul or them getting into their offensive sets and VCU be on their heels. So they really did a good job of that. Um, and with that being said, they had a field day in the paint. Now, this is the concern I was speaking of earlier. Bellarmine ran good action to get the job or get the ball down to the post, and they also scored a lot out of that action. Um, they did a lot of passing and cutting and ripping to the rim and getting to the paint, and they had a lot of success doing that as well. Um, Now, I just feel as if we're going to be successful, we can't give up 42 points in the paint to Bellarmine, who didn't have a traditional big that was just like a Chad Vinny from last year, where he's just really big and it's hard to guard. They didn't have that. They didn't have a Deron Holmes or anything like that. No world beaters, but they were able to outscore us in the paint 42 to, I believe, like 23 or something like that. It was very lopsided, and it made me wonder. Okay, is this because our lack of physicality down low, our slimness in our front court, the fact that Furman may be our only true shot blocker? Well, Michael Bell had two yesterday too, and I believe Jack Clark did too. But legit shot blocker, Furman may be the only one. Luke, maybe by the time the season comes on, like I said, I think he's going to spend most of his time trying to catch up in practice and then be inserted in the game and see what he can do. Uh, but yeah, I think that's going to be, I think that could be an issue. Or is it just because Bellarmine had so much action on the other side that they were just ripping and running the ball up our backs and us not being in ideal help position to get those blocks, to step in and limit uh, their paint touches and points in the paint. So I had to go back and watch some film to see exactly what that is that caused that. But it did raise a little bit of concern to me because they will play more physical, and VCU will play more physical and bigger teams, and more talented teams than Bellarmine. How will that be addressed moving forward? But on the other side of that, they did limit Bellarmine, who really likes to get up a lot of threes. They did limit them to only having 4 threes on the night. So what I took away from this is, one, Bellarmine is a really feisty team, and they're going to fight to the very end. And I think that type of mentality is going to benefit them as they go down the road. But also how VCU is an army. We played 10 guys yesterday. And coach has an unbelievable faith in his young guys. And it's not just coach, even the players. I spoke with Zeb before the game, and he was saying how he really appreciated how comfortable the guys are. He's like, I remember how I was as a freshman, but these guys are just way more comfortable than I was stepping into their first college basketball game. So that's a good sign, and I think Coach Odom needs some credit and deserves some credit for how he installs confidence within his players. And I think yesterday you got to see that in all facets. Um, but yeah, I thought they did a really good job. And it was a back and forth game. VCU turned it up in the second half and kind of pulled away. Bellarmine kept fighting, but the game ended up being a score of 84-65, VCU winning. But the game was a lot closer than the score indicates. Um, let's get into it. So for Bellarmine, Desmond McKinney, who was a point guard, who didn't take a lot of threes at all. He wasn't really a scoring guard, more of a guy that likes to set up the offense. He did a really good job yesterday. 15 points, 4 rebounds. A lot of he hit 1 3, but a lot of his stuff came from really just being aggressive in transition, and he had some success. Ben Johnson had a really slow start to the game due to foul troubles, but he found a rhythm in the second half. Unfortunately, it was just too much VCU for it to make a difference. He finished with 15 and 3 rebounds. Now, usually I only highlight 2 players, but I had to highlight 3 because I couldn't figure out who to leave out. Max Shoga, Cinemax, new movie, same production. 19 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. A regular night at the office for him. Joe Bamisile came through with 2 crazy highlight dunks. Both driving baseline, looking like the remnants of MJ. How he did some footwork down there on the baseline. He finished with 18 points and 3 assists. And a newcomer, Phil Russell, along with getting the crowd into the game over and over again with just his feisty mentality, he chipped in 16 points and 4 assists, which that led to them almost having 60 of VCU's 84 points. And that's still without Zeb Jackson. So this team could be really scary from the guard position. Now, my low key player of the game, I could have gave this to 2 guys, but I'll give it to the new guy just because he did show me a lot of different things last night, and that's Jack Clark. Jack Clark finished with 11 points, 9 rebounds, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. He really impacted the game, and it wasn't something where he had to force any shots. He wasn't hunting the ball. He just kind of let the ball come to him and play within the system. And if you watch that game, a lot of the guys did the same thing. So you never know whose night is going to be, but if they stay ready, they don't have to get ready. So shout out to Jack Clark. Now, I actually stayed and heard some of the players in the post game interview, and just some tidbits of information. Coach Odom mentioned how the stew was rocking last night and how it can be, but he wants it to be continued. He wants it to continue to happen and not just be one night good, the next night be kind of mid. But I'm fully on board with that. I think we should get the stew back to how it was before COVID. We had a continuous sellout record. We were the best ticket in Richmond. Now, of course, that piggybacked slightly off the Final Four and then the success of Briante Brad, Javante Reddick, Trevion Graham, Melvin Johnson. The list goes on. Johnny Williams, Tillman, you know what I mean, Marcus Evans, and those guys. Black. Of course, it all stemmed from that. But after that COVID year, we have games where we're really packed out. But I want VCU to get back to being the best college atmosphere or college basketball atmosphere in the country. We can do it. We just have to find a way to be excited every single night. And I believe with this team, they're going to have a lot of success, and they're going to give you a lot of reasons to cheer. So That was Coach Odom. I also wanted to highlight how Phil Russell was still impressed with our fan base as well. The Ramley, he said he wished he could have played here all of his career, because he said he came out to get his warm up shooting drills in, and the crowd was kind of dull. But by the time it was game time, the crowd was packed out, and he's just never experienced something like that. Um, so he was very appreciative. So when you see him trying to get everybody into it, just because he wants to experience it to the fullest. Um, and then Max also mentioned how they spoke, or how they're playing basketball. They said the man open is let me not misquote this. Let me not misquote it. He said the open man is the go-to man, and that's how they play, and that's the model they live by on the offensive end, and they really demonstrated that tonight. In the confidence and the comfort they have passing led to them having a really good shooting night. Now I know every night you're not gonna have 15 threes and shoot 51% from three. However, with the ball movement they have, they're gonna have opportunities to drive and get what they want at the rim as well. Um, but whatever's working works, and if it ain't broke, you know the rest. So moving forward, VCU will host Boston College. Boston College is 1-0 right now. They'll be playing them at a neutral site. They're led by Donald Hand Jr. and a familiar face, Chad Venning, who was at St. Bonaventure previously and gave us a lot of fits. But he'll be facing VCU in a different jersey. Um, Hand is averaging, well, out of the first game, he had 22 points and 10 rebounds, and Chad Venning had 15 points and 5 rebounds, very typical of him. Um, so my only concern is matching up with Chad Benning. I think when it comes to rolling out guards, I think we're always going to have just as good of hand as anybody else in the country. Um, but we have to bring that energy. We have to stay focused, and we have to improve on our interior defense. If we do that, I think that this team has the chance not only to have the best record in the regular season in the A10, but also they should be the favorite to win the A10 championship tournament, which will be hosted in DC this year. I miss Brooklyn though. I love DC, but I miss Brooklyn. But that's all I have for y'all, man. Make sure y'all tune in. Thank you for coming back to the kitchen, checking me out. And until next time, peace.